How did you get a girlfriend without going outside? I already explained. I have like crazy alpha energy. You can sense it from just literally across the street even.
I like nerds.
Only once I made the mistake to let my girlfriend watch swim together with me. Never again, I tell you. His male energy, the scientists call it swimojo, penetrated the screen and made my girlfriend pregnant. Now I have twin babies who get entangled in each other's hair and cry all day. Okay, that's pretty fucking good. Maokai Nautilus. Maokai Nautilus. What do you expect when you see Maokai Nautilus? It's gotta be, I mean, one of the versions of sea monsters, which means they are a slow deck. Now we could play to match their speed with Brood Awakening, and when you have a slow deck that can't punish you for keeping Brood Awakening, I think you should always keep it with this deck. That would seem good. God, there's almost a consideration to keep fucking Rasa. Holy shit. It's like, we can float the early turns because we have Brood. He applies 0 pressure, and he's attacking evens. So if we're thinking like, and so we are not a pressure deck. We're a deck that is never going to bully him out. We're going to sustain and then blow him out with our kill card. He's attacking evens, so if he open attacks on 8, like, our Rasa can just win the game there on the spot. We can play this into Brood. And because we had Brood in the opener, we can commit to a double float. So he's not an aggressive deck, and we had Brood in the opener, which means we have the ability to commit to a double float like that. I mean, the spider gets 1 attack if I do this. Hapless isn't really doing anything else, right? Is this doing anything either? So this is a slow matchup. I think, like, one of the things about mulligans is you just kind of have to think how the matchups are going to play out. It's like, okay, so he's a slow deck. We want to figure out what speed we want to be playing at. So we think in our head, okay, we could try to gun him down. Can our deck rush him down before he comes online? Our deck isn't really equipped to do that. It can actually sometimes, if we hit a hand. It's definitely not impossible. If we have like a double Brood Awakening hand and he just doesn't draw his defensive tools, that can definitely happen. It's not really something that's likely to happen. So it's not really something that I want to be thinking too much about. In reality, we just want to match his late game. Instead of trying to get under his late game, we want to go over it, right? We can put some pressure on. This attack doesn't really do anything. We can wait to get like a slightly better attack. And to combine that with the fact that we have Brood, that will likely allow our, like, it gives us an early game play, which is pass. Having Brood on our hand allows us to look at our turn 1 and turn 2 and say, okay, passing in these turns actually is good. He has no aggression. We're banking mana for a turn 3 play that'll, you know, reclaim the board. Maybe put a bit of pressure out. Maybe block a little bit of damage. We don't really need much of either, but I mean, they're a little good, right? So yeah, we're just chilling. We are in massive chill mode. We look at this hand, and it's exactly what we want it to be. If our hand had more like early options or more Vague Hunters, that would actually be a little bit worse for us. And you might say, well, Swim, look at this board sit. How is Rasa on 8 going to kill any big dudes? His little dudes are going to be cleared up by then. They will be. And his deck doesn't really have good answers to our top end. Sea Monsters is going to have a similar table as They Who Endure, except it's going to be worse. They play for a similar condition. They like kind of stall out and chump out the early game and then they do a big combo. Except this one ends at fast speed and that one ends at like combat or slow speed. And the difference between those two things is all the difference in the world. It's like massive. So could he punish us if we attack with Neverglade Collector here? I don't think he can. What the hell does that deck do? I guess he could block and grasp, whatever. So Rasa is a little bit better on defense than offense, which is also part of the reason why we look at, in the mulligan, we looked at the turn and we're like, okay, if he's attacking on evens and Rasa's coming out on evens, that's better for us, right? Yeah, there it is. There's the grasp. So he'll do like a grasp plus whale or grasp plus feast or something. I mean, he needs to kill this. You literally have to kill Neverglade Collector. You can't leave this card up. People play Nautilus Atrocity. Oh, okay. Yeah. The newer versions are running Atrocity, right? I think I have actually seen that. You're right. Unless he's running an older version, he should be running Atrocity. Wow, weird.
Of course you...
Okay, we'll just do this. Hey man, isn't Callista better than Elise here? Works better with Neverglade and can summon They Who Endures as a win condition too. No, it shouldn't be, no. I'll talk a little bit after this game about why. Specifically, yeah, like the biggest thing why. That being said, I mean, you're comparing, but this deck's running 3 champions, right? It's just 3 Elises, so we could run both. I don't want to run Callista in this list. It's not impossible. Okay, so this is our turn 7 attack. We're just here to lay out the pressure and just make sure that we're clearing up his board as much as humanly possible. We don't want to give him like any better blockers than this, so this should be kind of like the easiest attack.
We could use a bite.
The fact that Neverglade Collective forces removal makes it very good. Yes. So Elise is potentially flipping off of this Vile Feast to the Dredgers. We forced this Vile Feast out by using the Glimpse on the Neverglade when we had the other Glimpse, which means that when we go in for the Rasa on turn 8, all according to plan, his Vile Feast is no longer suitable as anti-Rasa protection.
We must all...
His weak units are cleared off of the board. We have the additional Wanderer? I might want a Fearsome Blocker, so we should play Wanderer here. It is turn 8. Our Elise is flipped. His board is clear, and we are ready. Give it to me, Daddy. Do it! God damn it. That sucks. I don't want that. He's got some treasures. He's going real deep.
And so I am the forest.
I am the forest. Raw. Later, buddy. Woo! Vile Feast me, dude! Do it! Oh, yeah! Woo! Oh, we're fucking crazy! Dude, he's got 4 cards left in his deck, too. I don't know how much that's gonna matter, actually. One health. God, if we actually lose this game, how tilted will I be?
The blessed isles live through me.
It's like, 1 health is like Atrocity or Whale. Or, sorry, not Whale, like Neverglade. It's like Warden's Prey can get us like Legion Grenadiers that'll do 1 damage. Or Cask. These can get used Cask. Warden's Prey can actually end the game here at 1.
What does he want from me?
Okay. I mean, we are down to 2 cards left in our deck. The worry here is sometimes like not having enough Fearsome blockers, but we have 3 Fearsome blockers here. If he plays like the Deep Sea Terror, he shouldn't have enough mana to like do much else. It's like Plateworm Egg is pretty scary, but you can't do Egg into, oh god. Oh no, the Hearthstone card. Oh no.
By the holy light.
Oh. There's no scenario where this card can be played and not represent a chance at victory. Like, no matter what, he has a chance to win this game now. It's like, no matter what he just got. Okay. It's a Trifarian Hopeful, alright. 1 HP comeback. Aurora Borealis, 2 random Poros. Alright. That's a lot of blockers. Arachnoid Host. Okay, that's not doing too much. Ooh, who goes there? I mean, does he have a swing in here? He kind of like, can he let my units die? Like, he has the same cards left in his deck as I do, dude. Like, the difference is, I mean, he has the Nautilus in the hand. Okay. Seems good. He's letting our Warden Spray die, so we could have the kill card here.
Just leave me alone!
We have, I believe, 2 outs. Well, this is like a half out. Because like this, there are, I don't know which cards off of this end the game. There's like the Dragon Kick. There is at least some cards off of this that could also end the game. I mean, the scary one is this. Like, Plateworm Egg is a really fucking terrifying card. This is like by far the strongest treasure. It's not even close. I mean, I can force him to have an answer to my They Who Endure. He's still thinking about what he's gonna do here. Oh, he goes for the Plateworm Egg. Post-combat Plateworm Egg. Alright, very interesting. So we're peaked out on 13 here. And I mean, we're not gonna need 13, right? So we can just shuffle the Elise. Okay, so playing this gives us a 3-card deck. Which could matter. I mean, this is somewhat of an opportunity to do this. Now, this actually might not even be a good play because it does reduce our outs. It's like, there's some weird chance that we needed to top deck a non-Elise card to win the game here. And it does kind of reduce those odds, but there's also a chance that we will lose by decking out, and that might be the only opportunity to shuffle a card into our deck that we're ever going to get. So dragging an 8/8 looks pretty good here. This looks good. No, we're good. Alright. I'll answer that question in a bit. Rahig Toter. So right now I'm gonna go ahead and answer the question that we had earlier this game, which was, why are we not running Callista? And actually, in the same vein, why are we not running Prankster? At the end of the day, this is a Swarm deck. Swarm decks use 2 things. They use Swarm tools and they use Swarm payoff tools. Right now, we have a meta and a deck where we have extremely powerful Swarm payoff tools. Those being They Who Endure and, I would argue, Neverglade Collector. These cards give you like such Swarm payoff that they actually just incentivize the rest of your deck to go deep into Swarm, right? So you think of like a square or a rectangle with like, you know, length and height or whatever you want to call it. So you've got X dimension and Y dimension, and one of them can represent, if you want, payoff, and one of them can represent enabler, and you want to balance those amounts so that you have a higher area in your rectangle. You want your rectangle to look like a square, in other words. So what that's going to mean is a balance between your enablers and your payoffs to maximize area, which in this case is going to be, let's say, value. And that's really important to remember. In the same exact way that, like, let's say height times length equals area, it is literally the same exact formula, which is payoff times enabler equals value. Literally not a different formula, which means that if you have, you know, you can literally envision it like a 2D diagram in your head. You can think about it in terms of squares and rectangles. Now, the one caveat to this is you really do need to be thinking in terms of different cards representing different amounts of each, right? So it's like, okay, because They Who Endure is such a ridiculous, like, this card will win you the game if you swarm enough, okay? And this card will win you the game if you swarm enough. Even though we have 6 swarm payoff cards, and like literally the rest of our deck, like 30 cards in our deck are swarm enablers, because of that, like just because of the raw power level of these combined cards, it ends up balancing out, right? And that's really important. When I'm talking about multiplying it out, I'm not talking about the quantity of cards. That's not it at all. It's just about like the value of each individual card of each individual category, right? How do you assign a card's numerical value for enable and payoff? Well, that's kind of the harder part. There's not like a math equation for that. So, I mean, it is actually possible to math that out. It would require like fairly complex math, and nobody in card games really wants to do that. That's the kind of shit you'd need an advanced math degree for, and it would take time and resources to actually prove, but you can do estimations. At the end of the day, it just comes down to, like, I guess the odds of cards winning you games is kind of the easiest way to explain it. Basically, we have achieved a situation in this deck where between Neverglade Collector and They Who Endure, the only thing we need, these cards will win us the game if we have a wide board, so the only thing we need is a wide board. So, like, Callista, you might say, is a Swarm enabler tool, and she's not really, she's more of a Swarm payoff tool. Like, she sometimes does level up, and sometimes her level up will generate a unit, but in reality, on average, she generates significantly fewer units than Elise, significantly, on average. Callista is going to generate, on her lifetime, something like 0.2 or 0.3 units, or something like that. Most Callistas won't generate a single one. That's an estimation. It depends what rank you're playing at. It depends on the meta, but most Callistas won't even generate a single unit, whereas Elise will generate, depending on how you calculate it out, like 1 or 2 units on average. It's a little debatable because the Spiderling she attacks doesn't live as a unit because it almost always gets blocked right away, which means it counts for They Who Endure, but it usually doesn't count for Neverglade Collector because usually your Elise is attacking before the Collector's on the board. So that one's a little, like, tenuous to tally up, but overall Elise is just much more units than Callista, and Callista is kind of like a sort of ambiguous Swarm payoff, but this list doesn't want more Swarm payoff. Atrocity is also Swarm payoff, by the way, just because of its interaction with They Who Endure, and that's it. That's why this deck is kind of built the way it is. You don't want anything that's not going to be kind of like winning you the game. And then of course you've got Prankster, right? So think about that. Think about like what I was just kind of like talking about, which is like the idea of not overcommitting and multiplying out. Like, okay, think about it like this. You've got a board with 2 Pranksters and a Neverglade, but then you only have 3 slots on your board, right? Like, even in an ideal situation, your board space is like really limited, and your opponent can usually just like avoid killing those cards if there's not actually like any pressure coming out on them. Like, this is payoff, but she, in almost every way, isn't a unit herself, right? You have to think about it like that. Like, she doesn't combine with Neverglade Collector because she doesn't force them to kill her when Neverglade Collector's on the board. She combines with the same things that Collector combines with, so I mean, it's sort of an indirect combination in that way, but they have like pretty significant diminishing returns when they're on the board together. That's